Did you know Venice, the romantic gondola city everyone's obsessed with, might be hiding a whole other city underneath it? For centuries, people have whispered about a sunken ghost city buried under the canals. Drowned palaces, flooded crypts, and church bells that supposedly still ring underwater when storms roll in. Fishermen swear their nets snag on rooftops. Divers claim they've seen ruins down there. So, is there really a lost city of the dead beneath Venice? Or is it just another creepy legend that refuses to sink? Before we jump in, if you enjoy these kind of videos, please consider subscribing to my channel. Now let's jump into it. Venice was basically a miracle. Imagine it's the 400s. The Roman Empire is falling apart. Northern Italy is chaos. Wave after wave of invaders pouring in. First the Huns, then the Goths, and later the Lombards. They burned towns, raided villages, and turned the once rich Po Valley into a no-go zone. People were desperate. So desperate, they ran somewhere no sane army would bother with. The swampy, mosquito-filled Venetian Lagoon. But here's the wild part. They didn't just hide there for a few weeks and go home. They stayed. Permanently. The lagoon was basically unlivable. Muddy islands barely poking out of the water, tides that flooded randomly, and clouds of biting insects. And yet, those same miserable conditions were exactly what made it safe. Invaders on horseback weren't about to charge into waist-deep swamp water. To survive, these refugees had to get creative. They cut down trees from the mainland and hammered millions of wooden piles into the mud to make a stable base. Here's the crazy twist. Those wooden foundations are still there, 1,500 years later. Why haven't they rotted? Because they're underwater, sealed off from oxygen. Venice is literally standing on fossilized trees. And it wasn't just engineering genius, it was community chaos. Imagine trying to turn a swamp into a city without Wi-Fi, cranes, or even a common government. Each little island started as its own mini village. Some fishing, some salt mining, some just surviving day to day. Over centuries, they fused into one massive floating metropolis. Fun fact, early Venetians used salt as currency. Yep, you could literally pay your rent in salt, which is why salary comes from the Latin salarium. For ages, Venetians have whispered about an underwater twin city. Streets, palaces, even churches now swallowed by the lagoon. The story goes that before Venice was even built, there were other settlements here, and the water took them. Fishermen talk about their nets catching on stone spires far below. Divers claim they've seen marble columns where no map shows any ruins. And during Venice's infamous floods, the Acqua Alta, people say the water wakes up the dead, blurring the line between the city you walk on and the one that sleeps below. Sounds like urban legend, right? But there's history to back it up. Venice has always had a death problem. No land for cemeteries, constant plagues, and way too many bodies. Their solution? Use the lagoon's tiny islands as mass graves. First there was Poveglia Island, literally nicknamed the world's most haunted island. Quarantine zone for plague victims, mass cremations, tens of thousands dead. Locals swear you can still smell ash in the soil. Then, they had San Michele, the official cemetery island of Venice. Before it became organized, corpses were buried wherever they could fit, and some ended up sliding into the water. Over centuries, rising tides have chewed at these islands, which means some of that didn't stay buried. Modern divers and archaeologists exploring the Venetian lagoon have found things that don't add up. Collapsed church walls deep underwater, miles from where any current church stands. Then Roman-era pottery buried in silt, proving there were settlements here long before Venice, and even ancient wood pilings older than the city itself. Hints of forgotten towns swallowed by the lagoon centuries ago. Some of these ruins are believed to belong to Altinum, a Roman city abandoned when rising waters forced its people to flee straight into the lagoon where they built Venice. So, is there really a sunken city beneath Venice? The answer is complicated, part truth, part myth. Archaeologists have confirmed there are ruins in the Venetian lagoon. Collapsed church walls, broken columns, even Roman artifacts buried under centuries of silt. These remains prove there were earlier settlements here long before the Venice we know today. Some dating back to Altinum, a Roman city abandoned when rising waters forced people to flee into the lagoon. But here's the thing, those ruins aren't an entire intact city. There's no perfect mirror Venice sitting underwater with streets and palaces waiting to be discovered. Instead, what lies below is fragmented, scattered remnants of forgotten villages, plague islands that eroded away, and foundations swallowed by the tide. Yet myths persist, and for good reason. Fishermen have pulled up marble blocks in their nets miles from land. Divers report strange shapes lurking in the dark. Pillars, bells, even staircases leading to nowhere. Some of this is confirmed by surveys, but other claims? Pure rumor. Locals swear they've heard bells tolling underwater during storms, supposedly from churches long drowned. Scientists blame shifting metal or seismic vibrations, but the stories won't die. The legend is sticky because Venice itself feels unreal, a city already half submerged, balancing between survival and ruin. Here's the wild part. Venice itself is slowly becoming the next sunken city.
City once again partially drowned. Postcard perfect Venice flooded for a fourth day. Not as violent as earlier in the week when gusts of wind met near record water, inflicting untold damage. The city's been declared a state of emergency.
The whole city sinks a couple millimeters every year, and sea levels keep rising. Floods are constant. Entire piazzas turn into lakes overnight. In 100 years, tourists might be diving through St. Mark's Basilica like it's Atlantis. So, is there really a city of the dead beneath Venice? What kind of fragments exist? Ruins, bones, lost plague islands. But the idea of a perfectly preserved ghost city? That's pure myth. I dig into the weird questions we all grew up asking, like was Caesar salad really Roman? Did gladiators actually fight to the death? If you're into uncovering shocking truths and forgotten myths, hit subscribe and dive into the rest of my videos.